Hello, Brother JT. How are you?
Greetings, good, and yourself. I see you.
You see me. Excellent. Excellent. Good. Welcome to the show. It's good to have you back. We've had you on a few times before, and it's always been interesting and enlightening. A few times we've had technical difficulty, but the information that was shared was always good. So we appreciate that. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here with you and all the listeners.
And we'll talk a little bit I guess you're going to talk on the subject of wormholes, right?
Yes, I think that's a good subject to talk about.
Let me introduce you a little bit in case people don't know who you are. Jerry Thomas, we call him JT. He's bachelor's in electrical engineering or electronics engineering. You can tell me which one later. And he's also was one of the few people that got to live in a house run totally on quantum energy. And he's seen a number of different things demonstrated, and he actually wrote a book about his experiences with the ministry and in energy in general, and that's called Free Energy 101. And we're blessed to have him on the show, and we're gonna talk a little bit about wormholes. Anything else you want to? What are you bachelor's of electrical or electronics, Jerry?
It's actually electronics. It's a degree issued by Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, California. They differentiated between electrical engineers, which is motors and generators, and electronic engineers, which at the time was transistors, microprocessors, that sort of thing. I actually avoided motors and generators to play around with chips and build computers, is what I originally was thinking.
Yeah, but obviously there's some crossover, and people that understand one usually have some basics on the other as well, wouldn't you say?
In general, that's true. I mean, it's a general science background, physics, all of that, so you do get, a little bit about motors and generators, that sort of thing.
Yeah, excellent. So tell us, I'll let you talk a little bit, and I'll interrupt you maybe with a question or a comment occasionally, but feel free to tell us what you know about wormholes.
Well, again, it's a fascinating subject. Those that are getting to know me, you certainly, and the listeners out there, I have an interest in what I call practical things. There are many theoretical people out there who like equations and coming up with interesting ideas. And there are a lot of those folks. However, the ones that are able to actually build something and make it work, that seems to be a whole other category of people. And that's the category I like to play in, is to make things and build practical things. In the case of a wormhole generator, I actually attempting to build a tabletop wormhole generator.
Interesting. And were you successful at that on that project?
The success is yet to be determined. Let's just say that we had a few milestones, and I'll enumerate a couple of those in a minute. So that time frame was from about 2000, the year 2000, to about 2008 or 2007. And then we'll talk a little bit about that experience as is appropriate, just getting a little background right now on my interest in wormholes. Then, of course, we found another guy and some other information who also had built a wormhole generator that had actual effects on the surroundings.
Okay. And you want to describe some of those effects?
Yeah, let's start with the latter, and we can drop back to the previous. I think the listeners will find this extraordinary, and to hear these kinds of things that we're about to say from these devices. Just a couple of key points. In the room the device was run, objects began to be drawn like to the center of the device. It was like it was pulling on the walls of the building, and the doors were being sort of like sucked in, and things were starting to fly around in the room.
Yeah, and that's quite astounding and quite spectacular stuff. And any other phenomena besides this drawing in, or this vacuuming, whatever you want to call it, this vacuum or vacuuming? effect?
Yeah, it would be, I guess people would think of it as being a type of gravity, I suppose. When we consider gravity pulls us to the Earth. So some would say that this device was creating its own gravity, if you will. Yes, there were a variety of other effects, one of which is that certain objects near the device, on the device, were becoming transparent. You could actually see through elements, see through things, see through pieces of wood. That was another activity. There were several activities, and again, we'll talk about a few just so people get the general idea. But you can imagine with things flying through the air, this environment could be a little bit dangerous for people.
Yep. Yeah. Now there's also I don't know if I should mention it or not. There's also large arcs that were coming up in different places. Am I right?
Yeah, we're getting to some of the effects of what I claim to be a type of wormhole generator. As you know, there are probably a lot of people that would like to hear some formal definition of a wormhole. And we can get into that a little bit, but I just thought it would be more interesting for people to hear that things were sort of flying around and becoming invisible. Also, the structure, the objects were bending and twisting in locations. They were, in other words, a straight object that would sort of bend and twist and no longer be straight even.
Yeah, yeah. You could say there's a structure, a warping of reality, a warping of this what we call reality, this dimension that we perceive.
Now let's be real clear with the audience. This what they're hearing me say was an actual event. This event actually occurred. This is not a science fiction movie or something I saw down at the local theater. This is an event we're talking about that actually occurred.
Yeah, and there's several of these, right?
Yeah, this is the second group that I was working with to work on this wormhole generator effect.
And we've had a few wormhole generator type situations as well. Now, just so the audience knows, a wormhole in theory opens a point from point A to point B. Am I right? Two different.
In theory, yeah. There's a lot of theories about what these things are. They're called wormhole generators or Bose-Einstein bridges.
Yep.
These types of things. Again, the theoretical physicists have a heyday with this sort of thing. And again, there's a lot of theories, a lot of ideas, and very little practice actually.
Yeah. Now, the guy, the second group that you just mentioned there that you're working with, they got their information from. Should I go ahead and say, or should we say that?
It's quite all right to say it.
Yeah, Lloyd Zerbis is where they got their information from, then, right?
Yes, that is one of the sources of information on wormholes. For those who can look, you can actually, do your Google search on Lloyd Zerbis. He'll come up. You'll see a book that was written about him, and of course he was ahead of his time. Anybody that comes up with things like this were sort of ahead of their times, and the device that was built actually opened like what you might call micro wormholes. They maybe looked like a spot of light that was like a vortex. And there was actually like looking into a TV, a being was actually seen through one of these wormholes, a being in some other dimension or some other reality.
They actually saw another being like an alien or something, right?
Yes. And the look on the being's face was one of shock and surprise because you kind of got the idea that it was a two-way situation, that whoever that was also seeing the person looking in, so to speak, through the looking glass.
Right. And I believe at one point they also had a sort of a probe or a robot sort of thing come through from the other side. Am I correct on that?
I think that might be a different story than this particular
Okay,
episode.
I wasn't at that one. Now we did do some work on wormholes, and we'll say that for the next show. The ministry did, and started back with John Morrow Keeley and Nikola Tesla. But we'll say that for the next show. But what I heard about this group you're referring to is that they at one point had a probe come through that was the whole thing didn't come through, but just part of it came through, and it looked robotic, and it actually turned its head. It turned its head like a robot had a head. You know, it turned its head all the way around, I guess, and viewed the surroundings. So it was like somebody from the other end looking to see what it was connected to, what was connected. That's what I heard. I wasn't there.
Yeah, there's a variety of interesting happenings in these things. Perhaps, though, your audience, and certainly I know the people that get to know a little bit about me, what people like to hear actually is maybe a little bit about how these things are built. What do you think we give them a little bit about that?
Sure, go right ahead.
Yeah, and again, this has heretofore been extremely confidential information. I am at liberty to discuss some of the details because it also is my own work as well, things that I built on my own independent of these other experimenters. To give some of the people an idea of a basic wormhole generator, which you also have built. Basically, we're talking about an air coil, coil without a core. If you can imagine, picture two sections, a top section and a bottom section, one above the other. Each section, say, let's just say 2 foot in diameter, and then say 12 equally spaced coils on the outside of the diameters. On the outer edges, it sits on the plates. These are plates, like two circular plates, one above the other, with 12 coils on each one. And the coils being spaced, the ability to move the spacing between the two arrangements up, back, and forth so you can change the distance. And the materials are critical. Those two plates were aluminum. And I know there's a variety of aluminum. Many people are going to say, well, my goodness, there's so many kinds of aluminum. What kind? Well, without getting into that, just aluminum. With 12 coils, top and bottom. These are spun. One's clockwise, one's counterclockwise. And the speeds are, say, between 50 and 100 RPM. This is a large object to be spinning at these speeds. The coils probably weighed 2 or 3 pounds apiece and had a great number of turns on the coils, thousands of turns. And then the coils were actually pulsed in synchronization with the rotational speed. And then the real secret to the wormhole generator is what you put in the middle between the two counter-rotating coil arrangements. And I don't know if we should leave that for another time as a point of curiosity or what.
Yeah, that's fine. Let's leave it for the next show. I think it's good. It's good for people to think about it and to know that these things are real and they are happening. They're the most famous wormhole experience. I'll just throw it out there for people. Movies have been made about it and so on, and that's the Philadelphia experiment. And our former spokesman, Ron Brandt, he actually worked on that experiment, and he viewed it from the shore, and we'll tell about that next week also.
That's a good one to talk about also. And I think what you might add to that too is that it's sort of like the Philadelphia was the cover for where it actually occurred, but we can get into that on the next show, as you say. For this pass, I wanted people to get a sense that these devices actually have a sense of practicality. In other words, 12 conventional copper wire wound coils, 2 plates spinning around. The idea here is that when you spin these things, that there's a type of force or a type of energy that sort of radiates outward from the pulsing spinning mechanism. And let's just say the key point that Zerbis attempted to tell people. And the point he attempted to tell people was that when you rotate something, a large mass, what he said, and I'm not saying I agree with this, but he just said that somehow that produced gravitational effects. And that is, in fact, what we saw in the lab, is what we call gravitational effects. And as the people who know me, Brother Timothy, know that I'm extremely cautious. I tell everybody, be very cautious about what you think gravity is, because I teach that it's something quite different than what everybody has learned in their textbooks.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Yeah, that's fascinating stuff. Very, very interesting stuff. Yeah, that's good. We can start taking questions if you want, or did you want to add anything else on this show, or shall we save everything for next show?
Yeah, let's talk a little bit more about that. People are getting the idea that this ability to create a wormhole is in fact a reality, and we're talking about on the level that is different than the NSA or the CIA or the DOD. These people have, untold sums of money to do this kind of research. We're talking about people that got, a Nobel Prize winning effects on a budget that most people would laugh at, and so I want people to realize that these devices, the device that they're hearing me talk about, was built for not a lot of money, tens of thousands of dollars perhaps, instead of the millions and billions that these other agencies and organizations use. And of course, those agencies keep all their results secret and private, and people rarely ever get to hear anything of the caliber of the kind of results that I've openly discussed here for everybody. Quickly though, back to 2000, when we built the one in 2000, that one produced strange magnetic anomalies. Just to briefly give that one a little bit of credit for some results as well.
Yes, definitely. Okay, excellent. Well, that's fascinating stuff, and we can save it all for the next show. Save the rest of it for next show if you'd like, unless you have anything else you'd like to add at this point.
Well, again, just the idea that amazing results have been created out there, and again, from what little bit people are hearing me say, the small time results we got in what we did, I would challenge people just to imagine the kinds of results that these huge laboratories with unlimited budgets have gotten. I'd like people to ponder that.
They've pretty much, and the ministry's been involved with these things for many, many years. So I can say we've pretty much perfected wormholes. But yeah, at a great expense. Yeah, we'll talk more about that next week, I guess. We'll save some of the good stuff for next week.
All righty.
All right. Well, we'll have you on next week. Again, let's see if they got some questions. Let's encourage everybody to send in your questions, and Brother Greg Martin will forward them on to me, and I'll read them. We got a question here from Brother Randy. Unless you have anything else you want to add this week, JT?
Just that I would like people to feel some hope in their hearts about a better world with better technology. The idea that there's been a lot of bad technology that have caused a lot of problems, this is certainly true. However, for people to think that their technology is all bad and that it won't help us to have a better future, I would just ask people to consider that, yes, we've all seen a lot of bad technology, and the good technology is yet to come out that will bring a lot of hope to people's hearts. And so I would ask folks to be very open-minded that there can be a great improvement with the technologies that have been suppressed and kept hidden from them.
Amen. Let me explain that a little bit with an illustration. For example, a hammer. Hammers have been around for thousands of years, and yet people build houses with them. They build nice things using a hammer, and unfortunately, a few people take a hammer and use it to kill people. It's the same exact technology. They hit their neighbor in the head with a hammer. I heard a guy today saying how he'd get mad at his brother, and one time he threw a hammer at him, knocked him out. Could have killed him, really.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's the same exact technology. It's just being misused, and that's true nowadays with a lot of things. There's a lot of good technology that's been developed, but technology is, the hardware can be misused, or the principles can be misused, and they can be used to destroy the planet, or they can be used to help the planet. Our ministry is bent over backwards to make sure we don't ever work on weapons, and so we've worked on a lot of interesting stuff over the years. But occasionally the bad guys will get in there and figure out how to make it into a weapon, and that's unfortunate. But the bad guys are always up to no good, and that's just what the enemy does. So it's not the technology's fault, just like it's not the hammer's fault if somebody hits somebody else in the head with it. The hammer's built to drive nails and so on, but it can be misused. And same thing. There's been many other illustrations that I could give. The saw is the same kind of thing. Many other illustrations that we can give. But that gives people an idea. It's not the technology. It's just technology can be misused, and all technology could be used for good, and that's the way it should be. That's the reason we work on the show on building people spiritually, so people have a little more moral character. If you learn to love God and love your neighbor as yourself, then you learn to use technology a little more responsibly and in a more blessed way to help everybody. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah. And do we have questions?
Yes, we do. We have 4 questions now, and the first one is from Brother Randy. And it says, why do you think things become transparent near a wormhole generator? And I'll let you answer that if you'd like, and I can make a comment after you finish.
Yes. What's happening is that we're used to time flowing at a certain rate around us, and so everything seems to be cohesive in the way time flows that we normally experience. So when the environment is being altered around things, the electromagnetic environment is changing dramatically. Things are flowing at a different rate, and therefore our senses and the way we deal with it in reality are quite different. So it's like 2 realities coexisting in the same space, and so there's differences. And when you see those things starting to fade in and out, you're beginning to see the differences that occur when you get a localized change of the environment due to a different kind of electromagnetism, so forth and so on.
Yeah, I would say another answer to that is occasionally things in the vicinity no longer are only in your vicinity. In other words, the wormhole effect is brought in, or the effect of a different space-time, a different location in space-time, is the effect of that location is actually brought in through the wormhole, and it starts affecting the things near the wormhole. In a sense, they're already in 2 places at once, so that's why another reason they could be described as becoming transparent. That the thing isn't just here in front of you anymore; it's also somewhere 1,000 miles away, or 1,000,000 miles away, or 1,000,000,000 miles away. Hopefully that makes sense. But yeah, space-time is relative, especially in a lot of high-power situations, which wormholes are high-power situations. Let's move on. Next question. This one also from Brother Randy. It says, and by the way, everybody that's listening, please send in your questions. And if you have questions for the next show, send them in to wits2014 at yahoo.com. That's WITS 2014 at yahoo.com. Or this show. And if we get them, we'll go over them on the air and answer them on the air for you. So anybody's welcome to ask questions. We encourage people to do that. And I might have one from the email even now. But anyway, let's go on to the next question. And again, everybody send in your questions. It says, I saw a film. This is Brother Andy. I saw a film in which an aluminum plate spinning produced magnetism. Is that for real? And why does that happen? You want to answer that, Brother JT? Or you want me to answer?
That's interesting. The aluminum has a reaction to magnetic fields, And I guess that some folks think that that it does not, and that's incorrect. So it's likely that spinning aluminum plate, there was another field or some sort of electromagnetic field nearby, and that could be what you were seeing is the interaction between the spinning aluminum and the other electromagnetic field. The idea that you spin aluminum and it becomes magnetic, though, I would say I'm unaware of any information that supports that.
Yeah, what happens is you get a lot of people that it's kind of like the story about the kid that pulls the legs off of the grasshopper, and he pulls one leg off and it says jump grasshopper jump, and the grasshopper jumps a little bit and he pulls the other leg off. Pretty soon he pulls all the legs off and he says jump grasshopper jump, and the grasshopper doesn't move, and so he writes down in his notebook, he says a grasshopper with no legs cannot hear. And so it's really easy. It's really easy for people to come to the wrong conclusions. And I've seen an experiment with a spinning aluminum plate where they put a magnet near it, and of course it pulls on the magnet, right? And so they say, well, that proves aluminum is magnetic. Well, no, it doesn't. It proves that your magnet is inducing eddy currents into the aluminum, and the eddy currents are pulling on, are magnetic. So you could say the magnet is, like you said, it's inducing a magnetism into the aluminum, or it's an effect, in other words. But when you take that magnet away, in most cases, the magnetism is not retained. In other words, if you put sensors near it and it's spinning, in most cases, the aluminum goes back to zero. Now, there are things that will magnetize aluminum. There are some. There's certain types of aluminum that will stay magnetized once they're magnetized also. Like there's many formulas for aluminum, I'll put it that way, and they all seem like just aluminum. But there is an effect where you can, with dominant energy, you can permanently magnetize almost anything, including chalk. And you'd think chalk can't be magnetized, but I've seen it happen. I've seen plastic magnetized pretty well too, as good as a ceramic magnet. And this is using dominant energy. And I've seen aluminum magnetized also, and I've seen copper magnetized also. And we're talking like a permanent magnet. But that's dominant energy, and that's using specific places on the dominant wheel that cause that kind of effect. And so not likely just a spinning plate would ever produce any kind of dominant effect. I'll put it that way.
Well, yeah, I was referring to conventional information. Our audience is probably becoming aware that there's another form of energy that you keep calling the dominant. I also use that term in my book, and this is a form of energy that is quite a mystery to our conventional scientists.
Yes.
And anyway, more questions.
Yeah, we have more questions. Brother Lidke, thank you, Brother Randy, for your questions, and thank you, Brother Lidke, for your questions. It says, JT, did you see any time travel effects?
Yes.
Okay. Maybe you want to elaborate a little bit, or maybe we'll save it for the next show. How's that?
Well, here, let me just say a little bit. The idea that you can construct a quote-unquote wormhole generator that produces time effects is, I would say, true. The types of things that you could do, there's a variety, to the past, to the future, a variety of things. How you control each phenomena, whether it's the past, the future, or what. Now that area, I have yet to learn that myself. It's clear that there are effects that are quite visible when you get these things going, if you survive, the flying parts. Yes, it's quite easy to produce time-changing effects with these kinds of things. There's the kind I just described was a mechanical rotating wormhole generator, and the other kind that we were working on, a solid state, turning the fields without moving parts. I would say, yeah. I've invested a great deal of my time in that because it was essentially a solid state wormhole generator. Now I'm using that terminology. There's other ways to describe these devices. Some people might call them black hole generators. I mean, people are going to have their own terminology. I think the term wormhole generator is colorful, and that's why I'm using it tonight.
Okay, very good. Um, and just so the listeners know, we do not, WITS does not endorse any of these other projects. So if you're endorsing, we'll let JT endorse it if he wants to, but we're not going to endorse it.
Well, again, I put a great deal of time into learning the truth about our reality, and I've had the privilege of working with a variety of people, including WITS, and I really have enjoyed all my associations.
Okay, very good. All right, and next question is, can you speak about the coil crystal device you made and the healing that you received from it? So we're changing the subject a little bit.
Yes. That was my personal wormhole generator. Yes, I'll say a little bit about that device, which I've usually been very quiet about. That was a solid state device, no moving parts. The device was copper wire and copper foil. And it was a very small device. The device was physically about, I would say, 5 inches tall and 3 inches in diameter. Still inside of it was a very small device. It was what I called an octahedron fluorite. It's an 8-sided fluorite, comes as a natural crystal in 8 sides. It looks like a double pyramid stuck together. And that device, again, was of my complete and own inventing. And it acted like when it was activated, it stored an energy, which that energy, after being stored, came out of the device and healed me. And that's a very, very quick description of that.
Yes. Okay. Let's see what else we have. What would a wormhole generator be used for potentially? I'll answer that one since you're answering most of them so far. A wormhole generator can be used for travel for great distances really fast, like say from here to another star system, very fast. It also can be used, say from here to the moon. It also could be used for time travel, going back a day or back a week or back a year or back a century in time, or going forward in time. And would you have anything you want to add with that, JT?
Well, those are the general good answers. For those who might want to pursue some personal development, I would say it could also be used as a very powerful meditation tool. I use the term meditation. Some people call meditation praying. Some people say that they allow their minds to drift and see where their thoughts take them. The term meditation, I hope, doesn't alarm anybody. There are some people that get quite alarmed when they hear that kind of a word, but it's really not a very, it's not an evil word, for people to meditate.
Scripture says meditate on the Word of God day and night. So there's nothing wrong with
well,
that.
I guess I'm referring to a branch of Christianity that got sidetracked for a while, and they labeled these kind of terms like New Age terms, and there was a branch of Christians that anything that was New Age really scared them, and they thought it was all the work of the devil. And so, unfortunately, that side group would think of terms like meditation, even though it's quite sincere. They would, use these terms and label people as New
Age. Yeah. One other point I'd like to make at this point, in regards to the brother that asked about donating, to contact me by email. And we'll have a consultation, and because there's some things I'd like to say that I can't say on the air, but and we can get JT on that call too whenever we do that, but that would be a private call. So anybody that is thinking about that, do talk with us first, and then just so we can, there's more things we can say, but can't necessarily say on the air. Okay, so questions and statements. So this brother has a question and a statement. It's Brother Quarterman. He doesn't say where he's from. Randy and Timothy Litke, we know them enough. They've been regular commenters and questions and so on for a long time, so we know where they're from. This Brother Quarterman, we don't know where he's from. So anybody that asks a question, feel free to say who you are and where you're from.
Anyway, the question is?
The statement and question. It says free energy, free electricity, quantum energy, 0 point energy, energy from the vacuum, and other terms named are not all in the same, are they not all in the same, in and of the same thing? They are all scalar energy, scalar weapons. Quarterman.
Hmm. Want me to jump on that one?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Well, the terms are referring to different aspects to things. Would it be fair to say that red and green and blue are all types of light? Red light, green light, blue light? Sure, you could say they're all light. However, clearly, we know that you say red, green, red light, so on and so on. So to just lump all these terms together and say it's all the same, I think would be to miss the point of the way we talk in our language, where we, simply are able to describe a different thing with a different word, so that it makes a more clear communication. To say that all these things are scalar, this and that, I think would be to overly simplify it all and then lose the differences between the items.
That's a very good answer, and I agree 100%. It's kind of like when I minister in warm countries, say the Philippines, where they've never seen ice or snow. If you talk about ice and snow and sleet and the different forms of snow, the different forms of ice, it gets very confusing to them very quick, and they say, "Well, isn't that all the same thing?" And you have to say, "No, it's not the same thing. Snow and ice are not the same thing." Well, to them it is the same thing, and people that work with snow and work with ice, they know it's completely different. The Eskimos had 27 different words they used for snow, sleet, ice, and so on, and because they were very familiar with the different states of frozen water. And whereas the people where there is no frozen water or very little frozen water, all they know is ice, because they got freezers that make ice, and that's all they know. So they say, well, isn't it all the same thing? And yet it isn't. We know that sleet and snow and ice are three different things. And the Eskimos literally had 27 different words for different states of ice, if you want to say it that way. We have three in the English language, three that I just named: sleet, snow, and ice. But yeah, so that gives people an idea. The more you work with this stuff, the more different words you start using, because that helps people understand better what it is when people that are also working in the same field.
Yeah, and that's the key. The key point is, there's a lot of people that only read about these things or hear about these things, and I call them the armchair scientists, as it were. And and I don't know. I guess a lot of people think if they've heard a little bit, all of a sudden there's some kind of an expert on the subject, when maybe all they've done is a little bit of research. And again, people have to be careful. Just because you have a little knowledge of the words, you have a long way to go in gaining an understanding of maybe what the words really mean and how they really apply. And perhaps on that note, I would say one of the most misused and misunderstood words out there is the very thing they call scalar energy. And that one is extremely misused, misunderstood.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, got another question. Says no person. We need to get, yeah. When people do make the questions, please get your name and your location, if you don't mind. It says, what are the dangers of a wormhole generator and effects of magnetism on the environment? So I guess he means and effects. What are the dangers of a wormhole generator and the effects of magnetism on the environment?
Well, again, if the people were listening to my early discussion, a lot of guys, of course, who first build these things simply lack any kind of knowledge of what they do. As our young experimenters found out, things were flying around, and the most immediate danger was getting struck and killed by a flying object. The magnetic fields, of course, could be dangerous because they attract things and so forth and so on. Keep in mind that very few people have enough knowledge. Those who are listening, please pay attention. Very few people have enough knowledge to build one of these things. I've actually given people more knowledge in this talk about how to build a wormhole generator than you'll find almost anywhere.
Yeah, you could do 2 or 3 or 4 years worth of research and not get that much information. And same thing, we often talk about quantum energy and And literally, you could do your whole life on research, 100 years worth of research, and not learn what we teach in 1 or 2 or 3 weeks on the show. And it's amazing to me how many people write us and should say that we're not sharing the secrets, and yet we're constantly sharing the secrets. So,
Well, that's part of the talk I wanted people to hear this evening is that these are simple coils and aluminum materials, so on and so on. However, the gadgets produce rather complex and exotic effects if you have a basic understanding for how to build these things. And I think we're going to have maybe 1 or 2 more sessions where we might talk about this a little more, and the people listening can think about it a little more and think about the kind of questions they may have and what they might want to hear. And I think you should indicate to people they should write in and with more of what they actually want to hear about this sort of thing.
Yes, definitely. And we will. I did mention that. Yeah, but yeah, feel free to write in emails and let us know if you have more questions or what you'd like us to discuss on these topics. And I would like to point out another danger. I've actually built wormhole generators as well, and I say the ministry, and I've worked on them. I'll put it that way. And another danger is they pull large arcs, and they cause large arcs. Maybe that's a better way to say it. Just like on the sun, you get these huge arcs that dance around on the surface of the sun. You'll get when you're building wormhole generators, you're getting them tuned in. You will get large arcs that start dancing around on the ground. And they'll shoot up 3 or 4 feet high. Sometimes they'll be so bright you can't really look at them. But
you're stealing some of my thunder for the next one. I purposely didn't talk about those arcs because we wanted to save that for the next time.
I won't talk about them then. Okay, they were asking about the dangers, and of course it's easy to get.
Yeah, well, that was one of the fun things we were going to talk about next time.
Okay, we'll say that for next week. Okay, next question. We asked that. And how do we make dominant energy? You want to answer that one? You want me to?
You go ahead and give that one a go.
Okay, dominant energy is made by mixing harmonic energy with inharmonic at the level or the mixture rate of thirds, and that's the basic answer in a nutshell. That's harmonic energy. We have discussed this in previous shows, so I'd encourage people to listen to all the previous shows, and we've discussed this in great detail. But harmonic energy is regular AC energy of electrons, if you want to say it that way. Inharmonic is basically ionic energy, what you get from Van de Graaffs and stuff like that, and you mix these correctly, then you'll get dominant. And dominant is quite unlimited if you do it right. And that's basically that's the basics. Okay, next question.
Yeah, can I say that's probably the most clearest I've ever heard you describe that. So I hope people really, really pay attention to that. What you just described is exactly the way you want to do that.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, and that was, of course, first published by John Worrell Keeley back in the 1870s. And one of his
However, Brother Timothy, you used the terms harmonic and inharmonic, and people have lacked an understanding for those words, and you've clarified them as good as I've ever heard you clarify them tonight.
Yeah, and I will say that I say ionic energy. There's many kinds of ionic energy. Many kinds of ions, if you want to say it that way. But basically, that's the basics of it. And let's go on to the next question. Brother Gary, it says, it might be pronounced Jerry, but it looks like Gary. Anyway, it says, and I apologize, anyway, are there any simple experiments we can do to observe dominant energy? Do you have a simple one that you want to suggest, or should I take that one?
You go ahead with that one.
Okay, simplest experiment you can do to observe dominant energy is to fly a kite in a thunderstorm, but obviously that's
Excuse me. You're going to get the folks struck by lightning when they fly.
Yeah, okay, so obviously it's dangerous. Well, you can observe it just by looking at the thunderstorm, so that's a simple experiment. Just lay down on the ground or inside your house while there's a thunderstorm, and you'll see all kinds of dominant energy. So that's the simplest experiment. That one's not. If you don't fly a kite, don't worry about the kite. You don't need it. If you fly the kite, then you're going to draw it in right to you, and you don't want to do that because it's lethal. But in large amount, it's quite lethal. But just lay there on the ground when it's thundering. Try to get something where you don't get rained on. But watch the sky. You'll see all kinds of dominant energy. So that's a simple solution there. All right. That concludes our questions, and I think it concludes our show. We've had an hour and 15 minutes or so, and we want to thank everybody. Did you have anything to add, brother?
I don't have time for a couple more thoughts.
Oh, yeah. No, go right ahead.
Again, the people who are listening, dominant energy is a term that was used by John Keeley. The normal scientists and engineers do not know or use that term. They don't know what it means. They don't know what it is. Nikola Tesla used the term radiant energy. It's kind of like that, or radiant matter. So I just want people to realize this dominant is everywhere. It's part of the natural order. And, people should realize that it's just something that's been overlooked or misunderstood or unknown. And Brother Timothy here that everybody's listening to is one of the very few people that I've ever met or know of who even talks about it. And he's blessed us all with sharing more about this dominant energy idea than anyone I've ever met or heard of. So I really hope people pay attention.
Yeah, well, thank you, brother. Yeah, absolutely the case. I thought of another simple experiment they can do. For $50, you can get a quote from the ministry, a $50 donation, and that if you have any pain in your body, you put that on there, like a headache, you put it on your temples usually, especially if it's a headache on one side more than the other. And in about 99% of the cases, the pain goes away really fast, 15 minutes, 5 minutes, 1 minute, 2 minutes. And that is basically because it amplifies the dominant energy of your body. So in that sense, you're seeing dominant energy. You don't really see it with your eyes. The only time you see it is when it gets really high levels, which is what lightning is. It actually makes a flash or a bright spot in space-time. Because it's jumping from one point to another. But in the human energy field, it's dominant energy, and so it can be amplified and it can be used for healing. And that's what QEET does. Quantum Energy Enhancement Technology is what that stands for. And it's a little device that you can, for Unity, or at least increase the efficiency of most systems, and including the human body. It increases the efficiency around an injury or around a pain to cause that pain to disappear, and healing to speed up. And so that's another simple experiment that somebody can do. And yeah, anything else you want to add before we close the show, brother?
Again, I thank you and the ministry for inviting me to visit with you all and all the listeners. And the listeners, I hope, enjoyed this show. It's certainly fascinating, interesting topics, and we look forward to more visits. And we ask people to, open their minds, open their hearts, and I think we can all find a way to work together to make a better world for all of us.
Amen. If people start donating on a regular basis, we only need 300 regular donors every month, 300 regular gifters or tithers, whatever you want to call them. And we can get the factory set up for home power systems. And that's what we're encouraging people to do. So it's a good time as any to mention it and encourage people to pray about it and do as God leads your heart. Don't do it because I say it. Pray about it. If God is leading your heart, then start making regular donations. And the website is set up again for donations. It was having some trouble there at one time. So that it can be donated. Things can be donated that way, or you can send a check to P.O. Box. Just send us an email, and I'll give you the address if you want to do that, if you want to do it by check. But the simplest way is right now is on the website. And there'll be more changes to the website coming up in the next couple of weeks. Also, we're planning to do what we talked about at the last show of last year, first show of this year. We talked about doing a crusade across the United States and demonstrating different technologies. So that's one of the things that we're still talking and trying to make final decisions, but we've got more preparing to do. A lot of preparing that goes into something like that. And so, anyway, we just encourage everybody to participate. Don't forget, all the listeners, don't forget to practice the love of God and in your meditation and see what happens. It's Scripture says meditate day and night in the Word of God, and that is the greatest command. So that's something we should give some time to every day. And let us know what happens in your life when you do this. And it's quite dramatic. To me, it's bigger than receiving the Holy Spirit and bigger than it's more dramatic than getting saved. I'll put it that way. Surrendering to God. So encourage everybody to listen again to the first part of this show, and again next week we'll have more teachings on the same subjects. And we plan to have Brother JT as our guest again next week also. Is that good with you, Brother JT?
Oh yeah, I'd love to join you. Hopefully I'll be able to do that.
All right, looking forward to it. Okay, so God bless everybody, and I guess we'll sign out now.